Hi, my name is Hannah Barch.
I'm Caitlin Delmas.
And we are both archaeologists here at Jamestown.
Welcome to another Dig Deeper video. Today we are at the burial site near the pitch and tar swamp, and we are looking at some really exciting new features. In our recent Dig Deeper video, excavation of a possible grave near the pitch and tar swamp, we told you about our September and October 2022 work in this area. During the last few months, we've made considerable progress and gained a much deeper insight into past activities here, as reflected by the archaeological features and soil layers. So the stratigraphy in these units don't necessarily look like the stratigraphy that we see all across the site. And that's because we have a large amount of gravel in this wall, which was here and deposited to make a gravel roadway that used to lead to our visitor center. We also have an earlier roadbed represented by this red crush and run gravel. This older road is the original and was built in the 1950s. To build this, they were likely using a tracked vehicle like a bulldozer. And that is what is causing the large divots both here and on the other side of me. It's potentially because that equipment is so heavy and potentially the ground was wet that we have this compression that you see on either side of me. So this gravel roadbed that I previously mentioned, it has a base of gray soil instead of the red crush and run. This gray soil is disturbed plow zone. This second road replaced the older one sometime after the 1960s. Underneath that, we have intact plow zone. Plow zone in archaeology can actually tell us a lot of information. Yes, the plow disturbs all of that soil and all of those artifacts, so we potentially lose some stratigraphy. However, the artifacts aren't going very far. Studies have shown that typically in a plow zone, artifacts only move about 50 feet. And so even though yes, artifacts are moving, they're not necessarily in their original location, artifact density can still tell us how this land is being used and potentially give us a clue as to what features are underneath it. The plow zone in these units gave us all of the usual artifacts: ceramics, glass, pipe stems, iron. However, we did find one really exciting artifact. We found a gold ring. This ring is a posy ring with a fade motif, and this is really exciting for us because we do not normally find gold. We don't normally find jewelry at all, but especially gold because it's a valuable material, right? People aren't dropping it and leaving it on the ground. This is a women's ring that also had an inscription around the inside, and we do believe that it is 17th century. The advantage to digging at a site that has either already been excavated or has been plowed means that once you get those layers out, you will come down onto subsoil and archaeological features. And here at Jamestown, we find lots of features, and this site was no different. So I'm going to hand this over to Hannah to talk to you about all the exciting features that we found in this area.
Thanks, Caitlin. So like she said, we have a bunch of really exciting features, especially in this unit here that we're working in, including what we believe to be a subfloor pit or cellar, which is about 6 feet wide by about 3 feet, although we don't have the entire cellar yet. It extends to the south, although we're not sure how far. It could be just a couple of inches from the wall, or it could be a couple of feet. We haven't excavated that far yet, so we're not sure. Once we figured out what this feature was, we decided to run ground penetrating radar over it, and we discovered that the feature was about 3 feet deep, which means it was probably about 4 feet deep from the original ground surface. And we discovered that there are actually objects within the feature. We're not really sure what those objects are yet. They could be bricks, like the ones we have just here, or they could be other artifacts or objects. So cellars are indicators of buildings, so we knew we were looking for a structure in this area. So one of the next things that we're going to be looking for are called post holes. Now, post holes can be indicators of buildings, or they can be indicators of fences. And in this area, we don't think that any of the post holes we found so far are actually related to this cellar. However, we do have one post hole just here that is being cut by this cellar. So it could be related, it could not be, we're not really sure yet. Besides this post hole that I just pointed out that is being cut by the cellar, we have 6 other post holes. We have one in the north part of our unit that is pretty large, and then we have 3 that are slightly smaller, as well as 2 that are small and square. So in order to determine whether we have a structure or a fence line, we're going to want to match up the different post holes. And there are 4 sort of attributes that we look for whenever we're trying to do this. We have size, shape, fill content, and distance between the post holes. So the first 2 aspects that I mentioned are going to be size and shape. And whenever you're building a fence line or a structure and you're going to have related posts, they're going to be related because you have a group of people or a person that are digging these post holes at the same time. And because they're digging them at the same time, that size and shape is going to be similar. So when we are looking for related post holes, we're also going to be looking at fill content. Say we have a post hole that is dug in 1607. That is going to have one set of artifacts. But if we have a post hole that is dug, say 20 years later, we're going to have different artifacts that have accumulated since then. And those 2 different sets of artifacts tell us that those post holes are probably not related. So the last attribute we look for when looking at related post holes is going to be distance. And distance is important because when you have a set of post holes for a building or a fence line, those post holes that are related to each other are going to be generally consistently spaced out. Let's take a look at some of the post holes that we have in our unit and see how they space out. We're going to start with this post hole right over here. All right, Caitlin, what distance do we have here?
We are at exactly 16.5 feet.
This distance is significant because in the 17th century, the standard unit of measurement for surveying was the pole, which measured 16.5 feet. Now, let's take a look at the distance between a few of our other post holes. We'll start with this one here that looks like it may go with the 2 we just measured. We can't see all of this post hole as it extends more to the south of where we excavated, but we can measure from the post mold of the fully exposed post hole to where this post hole hits our wall. That distance is 7.25 feet. It is likely that the post mold will end up being at about 8 feet. This distance is right to be related to the other 2, but we won't know for sure until we expose the rest of the post hole. For buildings, post holes are usually spaced between 5 to 12 feet apart. Finally, let's look at our 2 small square post holes. Measuring center to center, they are also spaced 16.5 feet apart. These are at a completely different angle than the other post holes, which may suggest that there are multiple fence lines or structures here. So the last feature that we have in this unit is actually a ditch just here that just so happens to cut this post hole, which means that while this ditch is still historic, it is more recent than this post hole. So the angle and the location of this ditch suggests that it might be related to the Great Road, which is a historic 17th century road that connected Jamestown to the mainland. So we only have a snapshot of what is going on in this area, so we'll need to do more excavations in the future to answer our questions. You know, how big is this cellar? How are these post holes related? Where is the building that we're looking for?
Thank you for watching this episode of Dig Deeper.